choice that will define the future of a region that served as the cradle of civilization and a crucible of strife.
We begin our headlines tonight in Egypt, Israel, Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Gulf states. A lion that was rescued from the abandoned zoo in Syria has given birth to a cub just hours after.
In the pursuit of a broader peace and peace with the Palestinians. And I greatly look forward to discussing this in detail with you, Mr. President.
Hi, my name's Gemma Neary, and welcome to this week's edition of The Modern Middle East. Throughout the show, we'll explore the arts industries in the Middle East. We'll be joined by the director of the Iranian Film Festival Australia, and we'll finish with a feature travel story about a writer who published her own guidebook about Bahrain. But first, let's look at what's been happening in the Middle East. We begin our headlines in Yemen tonight, where an airstrike by the Saudi Arabian-led coalition has drawn international condemnation after it hit a school bus full of children. The assault killed 51 people, including 40 children between the ages of 6 and 11 years old, and injured a further 79, 56 of those children. The coalition has reportedly launched an investigation, but maintained that the strike was intended to reach an opposition target as part of the military operations of the country's ongoing civil war. In Syria, the regime launched a series of airstrikes on opposition-held territory in the country's north, which left at least 22 people dead. Prior to the assault, the regime built up forces around the territory and airdropped leaflets advising residents to allow a return to state rule as the war approaches its end. Idlib is the last major city held by the opposition, which has raised fears that a potential government offensive to retake the territory could force over 2 million displaced civilians towards the Turkish border. During a volatile escalation at the Israel-Gaza border, Hamas fired over 180 rockets into Israel, and the Israeli Defense Force carried out 150 retaliatory strikes into the Strip. 3 Palestinians were killed, including a pregnant woman and her 18-month-old daughter, and 11 Israelis were injured after some rockets reached residential communities near the border. The exchange lasted just over 24 hours until unconfirmed reports emerged that a ceasefire had been reached, while separate and months-long clashes between the IDF and Palestinian protesters continued at the border. The New York Times reported that a prominent Syrian rocket scientist was assassinated by a car bomb, allegedly planted by the Israeli spy agency Mossad. Aziz Asbar worked extensively with the Syrian regime and their Iranian counterparts, and was reportedly leading a secret weapons operation that included the development of precision-guided missiles capable of reaching Israeli cities. Israel has been known to actively target national security threats in Syria, with this most recent operation marking their 4th assassination attempt against a foreign weapons engineer in 3 years. The United States announced that it will double trade tariffs on steel and aluminium imports from Turkey, intensifying existing diplomatic tensions between the 2 NATO allies. The announcement places significant pressure on Turkey's already flailing economy and caused its currency to fall 18%, which was the largest single-day decline since the country's 2001 financial crisis. The Trump administration also reimposed sanctions on Iran, which impacts not only the regime, but the regional operations of companies owned by America's European allies. A sudden diplomatic feud broke out between Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The incident was ignited after the Canadian Foreign Ministry tweeted concern for a number of detained women's rights activists in Saudi Arabia. And in response, the kingdom expelled the Canadian ambassador, stalled recent trade agreements, and cancelled inbound and outbound flights to Toronto. Despite an absence of support from Canada's Western allies, Trudeau reiterated his intention to continue speaking out on international human rights issues. A manual recount of ballots from Iraq's parliamentary election revealed no discrepancies from initial result announced in May. The recount was ordered after the election was plagued by accusations of fraud, but the process was cut short due to the missing ballots that were destroyed in a fire at a storage warehouse. Now, 3 months after the election, Shia leader Muqtada al-Sadr retains his victory but is stalled in efforts to form a coalition government, with current Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi still in power during the crucial transition. Lastly, a team of undergraduate students in Helwan University in Egypt have built a car that runs solely on compressed oxygen. The one-man vehicle can reach speeds of up to 40 kilometres an hour and can drive for up to 30 kilometres before it needs to be refueled. The students developed the incredible prototype for an assignment, but are now fundraising in an effort to mass-produce the vehicles, which they hope will counter issues such as rising energy prices and the search for renewable energy sources. The students' creativity actually brings us to the theme of this week's episode: the art, theatre, music and film coming out of the Middle East. In Iraq, a young artist paints through the night in an effort to find a quiet moment from the sounds of conflict that return with daylight. In the Palestinian territories, over 300 kids are a part of a theatre club that write and perform plays throughout the region. In Lebanon, a flip of a coin determines whether two rappers will freestyle in English or Arabic at an underground rap battle. And in Iran, a renowned director banned from filmmaking reportedly sent his new feature out of the country on a USB hidden inside a cake. While Middle Eastern artists, performers and filmmakers have struggled against conflict, censorship and a lack of investment in recent years, the works that continue to emerge from the region offer their viewer a unique glimpse into the complex political and cultural influences that frame their creators' perspective. Welcome to Iraq was an exhibition at the 2013 Venice Biennale and marked the first time in over 3 decades that the work of local Iraqi artists had been showcased at the world's most prestigious art fair. 11 artists exhibited works that reflected everyday life in Iraq, which ranged from traditional oil paintings and sculptures to photographs and satirical cartoons. Their creators included up-and-coming painter Basim al-Shakur and were curated by the Ruwa Foundation, a non-profit that supports the country's emerging artists. Similarly, Theatre Day Productions aims to foster creativity in Palestinian youth by providing them with the opportunity to write and perform their own plays. Since their establishment, the company has produced over 30 original stories that depict the realities of Palestinian life in Gaza and the West Bank. As well as regular drama workshops for kids, the company's signature program is its 3-year curriculum, which offers a select group of young adults performance and leadership training that strengthens their skills in expression, teamwork and conflict resolution. Just as theatre can reflect the struggles of everyday Palestinians, hip-hop music has been adapted across the globe as a way to express the specific societal challenges faced by the performer. In 2015, a popular Lebanese hip-hop artist established the first official rap battle league of the Middle East, known as The Arena. Regular events provide a coveted platform for amateur hip-hop artists who are paired up on stage to face off in a freestyle rap battle.
Who am I? Putin and Obama. You're like Trump's fake wig blabbering advertisements to the masses.
With a dedicated and growing audience, the events consistently attract local and international rappers from neighbouring countries, such as Egypt and Syria. In contrast to the freedom of expression granted to Lebanese musicians, the Iranian film industry continues to bear the weight of significant government censorship that was imposed after the 1979 Islamic Revolution.
There's not an decrease in the number of films being made. So in Iran, there's often between 100 to 150 feature films made a year. So that's actually a very high number internationally.
While censorship parameters have never been legally defined, prohibited material has previously included themes that encourage moral corruption and criticism of Islam or the regime. These restrictions on creative license have produced a unique cinematic style that blurs the distinction between fiction and reality, a consistent theme in the work of influential Iranian filmmakers like Jafar Panahi. After his political activism throughout the country's 2009 presidential elections, the director was arrested and subsequently banned from filmmaking, communication with the media, and most international travel. However, in the 8 years since the sentence, Panahi has managed to create and internationally distribute 4 feature films, the first of which was titled This Is Not a Film. His following feature, Taxi, continued to weave fiction with documentary, depicting a series of fascinating conversations between Panahi and his passengers while he drives a cab around Tehran.
اگه تندتر بری حتما میرسی انشالله میره
It received numerous awards and widespread recognition, and one critic noted that a series of cab rides is in fact a portrait of his whole country. The dual nature of arts industries as both an expressive outlet for the artist and an opportunity for the viewer to better understand a perspective different to their own is not unique to the Middle East. However, creative works offer a particularly rare insight into a region that's both politically complicated and culturally rich, whether that's in the language of a Lebanese rapper searching for their next rhyme, or through the lens of an Iranian filmmaker capturing the complexity of everyday life. We have to go to a break, but stick around as filmmaker and festival director Armin Miladi joins us from Iran to tell us what's in store for the 8th year of the Iranian Film Festival Australia. Welcome back. Joining us all the way from Tehran is Armin Miladi, an award-winning filmmaker, the founder of media and distribution company Daracheh Cinema, and the director of the Iranian Film Festival Australia. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi Gemma, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So firstly, tell us a bit about your career and what you're doing in Iran at the moment.
Well, as you mentioned, at the moment, what takes up most of my time is film distribution with Daracheh Cinema. Our main focus is distribution of Iranian films in North America, USA and Canada, and in Australia and New Zealand. Also, the Iranian Film Festival in Australia, which is happening every year. This is the 8th year. It's going to happen in Australia in October and November. And this year we are starting first Iranian Film Festival in New York. At the moment, I'm working on my own film, which is one of the reasons I'm in Iran. But also, on the other hand, I felt like I have been away for so long from Iran. Every time in the past 15, 16 years since I moved to Australia, you know, in a very fast-paced country like Iran, and with all the changes that happens, being away for 10, 15 years is a really long time, and you forget a lot of things.
So how would you describe Iran's film industry and cinematic style?
That's a sense of realism is very, very much what highlights Iranian cinema, and I feel that's what audience outside Iran refer to when they talk about Iranian cinema. But of course, there are many type of genres that they do in Iran, which is not as much recognized outside.
As a filmmaker that's worked in both Iran and Australia, are there any differences or similarities between the two industries?
Of course, what you can see, if you refer to it as an industry, I mean, the bases are the same. You have director, producer, and all the cast and crew. But when you look deeper into it, I think the biggest difference is the way the authorities look at the film industry. In Iran, you have to go through a lot of different stages to get, for example, when you come up with an idea, you have to get approval for the script first. Then you have to get approval for the shooting of it. Then there is another approval that needs to be received when you want to screen the film inside Iran. So that's the biggest difference that I feel compared to, for example, Australia, that you don't need these permissions. As long as you have a budget, you have a good idea, you find a producer, and you go ahead and you shoot. But on the other side, in Australia, the big challenge is all the Hollywood films and their old English-speaking language that they are available in the cinemas, and that's a challenge for the Australian film industry to make films that are able to compete with those productions to be shown in the cinemas and bring the audience.
So tell us how the Iranian Film Festival Australia was created.
Back in when I moved to Australia, it was right after 9/11, And when I was in Australia, I was feeling it wasn't the best time to say that I was from Iran. Many of my friends who were almost the same age as me, when they were going out to the clubs, for example, they wouldn't say they were Iranian. They would say they were Italian or Greek or something, but not Iranian, which was very sad to me. So it was at the time, it was the only time that when I was at the film festivals that I felt I could proudly say I was from Iran, because they would link me to the great culture of art and cinema of Iran, and I would feel proud of being Iranian. Maybe something that I can do there with the cinema to have this opportunity for my culture, for Iranian culture to be seen and to be understood better in Australia. That was when at the time I started working with a great friend of mine, Andy Mikero. We started the film festival together. She was a great help to shape this festival. Unfortunately, from this year, she's not going to be working with us. And here I take this opportunity to thank her for all the efforts she did for this festival to grow to this size. And I feel since the festival has gone to this level, it is something that Iranian background people who live in Australia, they feel they have something to be proud of, or that's what I hope they have. So I think that cinema is a way to provide that sort of cultural understanding, to have a bridge between what people might know about the country, and to come and see a film to get a sense of what is life like inside Iran. So they know, okay, it's not all a desert, or we don't ride camels like some people who might not have knowledge. Not so much these days, but in the past, we would hear a lot of those comments. So that's what I feel cinema can do, and I'm glad that the festival is able to have that opportunity for Iranian cinema to be shown in a country like Australia. So I'm hoping that this exchange eventually provides that sort of opportunity for collaboration of filmmakers in Iran and Australia together.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. So how has the festival grown since you started it?
In the first year, we started in 3 cities. We started in Brisbane, Adelaide, and if I'm not mistaken, in Canberra, and that was in 2010. And so now we are in 6 major cities in Australia. We haven't. It's very difficult to run a festival with a small team and a very dedicated team who really do this for the love of culture and the arts. But we try to keep the standards to the level that we like the festival to have, to bring for it to be attractive enough for non-Iranian audience who are in Australia, who like cinema, to come and see the type of quality films that they would expect from a festival. And also we have, from the past two years, we started to have a competitive section in the festival with collaboration with Australian Embassy in Tehran. We hold the awards, and that provides an opportunity for filmmakers who have their films at the festival to be recognized. And I feel that sort of exchange helps both people in Australia and the filmmakers in Iran to have a platform to, from one hand, to promote their films, and from the other hand, in Australia, for the films to be seen, which is great. It's a very feel-good thing for me to do.
Just before we have to go, can you tell us when this year's festival kicks off and what we can expect?
Sure. This year, from 18th of October until 18th of November, there's going to be the festival happening in Australia. We start in Sydney, and then the week after we go to Melbourne. Then we are the week after in Brisbane, and then we finish at the same time in Perth, Canberra, and Adelaide in mid-November. So I'm hoping that to see a lot of our festival friends who always come back and support us. It's really great, and for me to be back in Australia in that 1 month traveling through different cities and presenting these films.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to go to a break, but thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you. It has been my pleasure to be with you.
When we get back from the break, we'll share some tips from a traveller about the best things to see, do and eat when in Bahrain. Welcome back. A lot of the content that we cover throughout the show focuses on regional politics and conflict, but we also want to spend a bit of time exploring some of the beautiful destinations and unique experiences that the Middle East has to offer. So to wrap up tonight's episode, we spoke earlier with Melissa, a writer who published her own guidebook full of tips from the 6 years she spent living in Bahrain.
Okay, maybe I should have a sign for when I'm talking too fast. It's like, just because I always like, that's my biggest thing. Okay, so my name is Melissa van Maasdijk, and I'm a writer and editor, currently based in Abu Dhabi, but I actually lived in Bahrain for 6 years, which is when I just fell in love with this whole region. Well, I moved to the UK after getting married to my husband in 2003. Just a few years later, he was offered this job in Bahrain, and I quite frankly hadn't heard of Bahrain. It's a really small country. So we came and visited and really loved it. And also as a woman, I thought, oh, am I going to have my liberties, restricted? Because I like to live life and not, don't have to cover up. Very liberal, Bahraini women all out there in the workplace, and it was a really and also cosmopolitan. I mean, people from all over the world. I mean, and you have access to people like archaeologists and ambassadors, and you go to sort of ambassadors' parties and gardens and under the stars, and it was just a very amazing. Yeah, I just thought I had to write a guidebook because there was so much, and I decided to make it quite insidery. I've actually got it here if I may show it. This is the guidebook, Smart Bahrain. So, and what I wanted to do was make it insidery and a really under the skin of Bahrain feel. So I interviewed people shaping Bahraini lifestyle, so chefs, designers, architects. Okay, so I think the best thing about Bahrain is the fact that it's got all this incredible history and that it has civilizations going back to 2500 BC. But the best place is called the Qalat al-Bahrain, which is the Bahrain fort. Archaeologists in the last century found 5 layers of civilization dating back to sort of 2500 to 3000 BC. So when you go to this fort, which has been beautifully excavated, you can sort of walk the ramparts, view the sea, and then find all these incredible artifacts that just soak it up, and you feel this incredible. There's a soul there that's amazing. And one other favorite place, if I may mention, that I love it's a place called La Fontaine, which is an art gallery, and it encompasses a restaurant and a spa as well, and a performance space. And it's also an old pearl merchant's house. So the gallery is around a courtyard, and inside, in the middle of the courtyard, and they have these performances from opera to like whirling dervishes, and it's just an incredible thing to do if you're there. And apart from walking, you can go to islands. It's made up of 36 islands, so you can take boats out to these gorgeous islands and go to the beaches and walk, and so that's a must. And then another thing which has to be tried is a Bahraini breakfast, which is this is one of the famous things. And you basically go to these cafes, and there's 2 that I love. And one is called Hajji's in the souk, in the middle of the Manama souk, and it's in this little side street with little old benches. And it's been going for 60 years, and people come after prayers. That's when it starts at 5 a.m. every morning. And they have this big silver tray with liver and scrambled eggs mixed with tomato and some beautiful fresh out the oven flatbreads and sort of white cheese and jam and milky sweet tea. And it's just wonderful. You mix with locals. You just find all these locals around you. And it's just a beautiful place to go for breakfast. And so we came just thinking, beautiful sunny island, Middle East, let's go and explore an exotic culture. And then I found there's a lot more to it, an amazing country. So it's a beautiful place. Yeah.
Thank you so much to Melissa for sharing all of her experiences and advice. Copies of Melissa's guidebook, Street Smart Bahrain, were ordered by the Crown Prince himself, and you can order yours online through Amazon. And for more information on travelling to Bahrain, visit the website below. That's the end of this week's edition. Share your thoughts on anything we covered on our social media pages and head to our YouTube channel to catch up on highlights from tonight and previous episodes. Tune in next week when we break down President Trump's major foreign policy decisions in the Middle East so far. I'm Gemma Neary, thanks for watching and have a great night.